I Can't Breathe, Please Don't Say You Love Me by Transvic on Archive of Our Own. Dazai wasn't human. There were qualities all humans had that Dazai simply lacked. The need for social interaction, the desperation of love, the pang of hunger, and the danger sense required to feel fear and bravery. Dazai felt none of it. Living in such a world, he felt alien. Sure, maybe he was human on a physical level, a literal level, but was he really? When it came down to how others saw him, did he really have the things he needed to be considered a human being? That may not be the right word. Maybe what he really meant was a person. Maybe what he really wanted deep down was the experience others felt. When Dazai met Chuya, he was absolutely sure something had changed. For once in his life, he felt what he only knew to describe as attraction. A deep sense of relaxation, the ability to not think. It wasn't always like that. Most of the time it wasn't, but it was still an incredibly new experience. When he was around Chuya, he didn't need to be scheming his next move. He didn't find himself needing Chuya's respect, nor did he have any reason to make Chuya think highly of him. When Chuya was angry at him, it didn't matter, because it would lead nowhere either way. When he was around Chuya, he could reply based on instinct alone. There was no logical next step involved. There was no thought behind Dazai's confession. Those 3 words meant nothing to him, but clearly they had meant something to Chuya. He wasn't surprised or upset when he was met with anger and violent retaliation. It didn't really upset him. And when Chuya finally caved, accepted those so-called feelings and gave him a chance, it meant nothing all the same. Laying in Chuya's arms at night felt no different than some random woman's arms. It was warm. He had no reason to leave, not to mention Chuya had so graciously offered him an apartment to stay in when Dazai wasn't feeling up to returning to the toxic wasteland that was his shipping compartment. The caveat of the deal was intimacy, which he didn't mind. This is what boyfriends did together, right? He let his eyes slip closed, lulled into limpness by the gentle hand caressing his hair. For some reason, Dazai was unable to think like this. Leaning against Chuya's chest, arms wrapped against his waist, he finds himself empty. Where his mind always seems to be rushing at incomprehensible speeds, he instead finds a numbing sense of nothing, a hollow hole inside of his mind. It occurs to him that what he's doing is wrong, not because of his feelings, but because of Chuya's. Dazai doesn't know what love feels like, but clearly his partner does. People have spoken to him, expressing a sense of envy at the way Chuya supposedly looks at him. Dazai isn't blind to the gaze that always seems to linger on him. He isn't numb to the soft touch against his skin. He isn't heartless enough not to notice the tears in Chuya's eyes whenever they argue, when one of them gets hurt, when things go awry. What Dazai has done to Chuya is a crime punishable by death in his eyes. He's made Chuya fall for him, a perfect human holding someone so beastly in his arms without a care in the world. What he's done is not selfish. He had no reason to want this, but he has it, and that makes him guilty. When Dazai tugs him a little closer, Chuya's eyes open. The ginger boy is groggy, only partially awake. What's wrong? I thought you were asleep. Nothing's wrong. There was no lie behind those words, no further meaning like the things he told other people. He didn't have any thoughts in his mind to tie an ulterior motive to. Chuya clearly disagreed. The pinch in his eyebrows and little sneer crossing his face was evidence enough of it. No, you're being weird. What's up? Dazai breathes out through his nose, then nuzzles into Chuya's shirt. He wills himself to think of any reason he may be upset right now. His mask is always impenetrable. If Chuya is seeing something through nothing, then clearly there's a crack he's failed to mend. It occurs to him again. That simple, mindless thought that had passed him moments prior. Something about how they are right now is wrong. Something about them together like this makes Dazai guilty of a crime. A frown tugs over the corners of Chuya's lips, but he doesn't speak. He knows well enough that Dazai's mind is something no one can understand. Dazai can only assume Chuya is giving him a generous amount of time to allow him to try and make words out of it. The time passes in silence, something so quiet that it causes Dazai's ears to ring. I don't love you. The words are blunt, crudely breaking the silence. Dazai realizes how abrupt this statement is, how it lacks what he meant to convey entirely. His eyes shoot open, and he pulls away to try and correct himself, but before he even gets the chance, Chuya sighs loudly to shut him up. Dazai's mouth snaps closed. Silence falls over them again before Chuya speaks. Something dreadful begins to twist in Dazai's stomach. I guess it was obvious. Chuya doesn't have the words. Dazai doesn't either. He has no clue what the other is trying to express. I don't mean that... No, Dazai, I know what you mean. I just don't know how to say it. Chuya cuts him off once more. He finishes Dazai's earlier movements, sliding his hands from his waist to his shoulders, meeting his gaze. I don't think you do either. The feeling of Chuya's eyes on him is too much. He can feel hot shame burning in his cheeks, combining with the knot in his gut in a way that made him feel sick enough to vomit. Yet even as he wants to ridicule his own foolishness, he still can't find it in himself to think without great effort. He doesn't love Chuya, but he feels something. He has to. What Chuya does to him isn't something anyone else can do. How he strips him of his greatest assets so effortlessly and doesn't even seem to realize is beyond Dazai. How he makes it so hard to plan anything, to be deliberate or manipulative. It has to mean something. I don't think I love anyone, he says. It's the only way he can put it without somehow offending Chuya more than he has. I know, I told you I know. The gaping holes in their conversation feels like knives stabbing into Dazai's side, turning slowly and only speeding in the final moment as they right themselves, only for the process to repeat. It's a low throbbing in his throat, making him unable to speak despite how deeply he wishes to scream. Fear, guilt, what he's feeling has to be one of these two, but he can't decide which. I still want you. There's no word to explain in which way Dazai desires Chuya. It's certainly not romantic, and there's no want behind anything sexual he's ever done. It's something beyond platonic, though. I know. And Dazai just nods.